If you stumbled upon this review because you're a fan of the 2012 film Dredd, then I implore you, dear listener, to fast forward this audio about 6 minutes. Do it now, please, because I'm the entirely wrong man to be reviewing this film. Though I was an avid comic book collector between the ages of 12 and 15, I've never read the original Judge Dredd. And though I had a pubescent preoccupation with the action figure films of the 80s for a minute around roughly that same period, I never saw the Stallone vehicle, and I've since avoided it as I avoid a leper. So please fast forward. Because really what it comes down to is that I just don't understand the appeal of this sort of film. And the fact is, pretty much the most boring thing I could think of to watch is a chase scene or a shoot the bad guy scene or a shoot the bad guy chase scene, which pretty much sums up the plot of Dredd, incidentally. Oh, here it is more formally stated. In a post-apocalyptic American wasteland, a grizzled veteran law enforcement officer / judge and jury pairs up with an idealistic rookie on her first day on the job, and they do battle ad nauseum with a gang of drug lords who explode in all sorts of blood splattery but mostly slow motion sorts of ways. And that pretty much sums it up. Does that sound familiar? It ought to, because it's meant to be familiar. Leastways, that's how it seems to me. The film appears to be intentionally familiar, intentionally banal, intentionally uninspired, intentionally cliche-written. In fact, the most interesting quality of the film is the boldness with which it states that it's not taking itself too seriously, as if to indicate that we shouldn't take it too seriously either, and this way we'll enjoy it. I tried not to take it seriously, but the fact is I experienced the film like most things I'm not supposed to take too seriously, like chewing a piece of gum that's lost its flavor. Oh, I don't know, maybe it's a film of pure escapism. A simple, mindless pleasure, and in that light the film is effective for anyone looking for that. It's all astutely handled, as a kick-ass video game might be astutely handled. In fact, the score sounds like a video game, the plot is a video game plot, the photography has that sort of glitzy, grime video game aesthetic, and the currency in the movie is even credits, just like a video game. So to kill 90 minutes of life in a video game fashion, why not? But the thing is, I've already sat through escapist drivel too many times in my life, and the prospect of killing 90 more minutes with it annoys me. I'd rather kill my life doing pretty much anything else, fixing a flat, shoveling my driveway. If I need to escape the platitudes of life, I'll take a walk in the woods. I'd rather kill my time by doing anything other than listening to dialogue exchanges like the scene where Dredd tells the bad guy who's about to shoot him to, "Wait!" And then the bad guy replies, "Wait for what?" And then the rookie shoots the bad guy in the back, and Dredd remarks, "Wait for her to shoot you." Good lord. This is the sort of dialogue writing that comic book writers settled on because of the limits of their form and the expectations of their acne-plagued readers. And later it was the sort of dialogue writing that 80s action figure movie screenwriters appropriated to sell popcorn to the conception of the lowest common denominator that they had. Being corralled into demographics like lowest common denominator, I don't know, it gives me the willies. Oh God, please fast forward, because it's dawned on me that maybe the appeal of this sort of trash culture delicacy lies in the romantic sentiment for exactly those comic book exchanges and action figure pictures of the 80s, and I'm a guy who resists nostalgia with all my being, so again, I'm the absolute wrong person to be talking about this movie right now. The thing is, I have a theory of that nostalgia, that human faculty of seeing the past through the proverbial rose-colored glass, is a kind of mercy bestowed upon us by Mother Nature. An evolution-born faculty we develop so that when we're on our deathbeds we can feel psychologically okay about the lives we lived, no matter how shitty they were, and so we can go bravely into that good night. Please fast forward this, because I'm the kind of guy who whenever someone says to me, "Those were the days," I without fail say, "No, friend, these are the days." And this is a matter of the utmost gravity to me, so please fast forward. I tell them, "Brother, this is the day. This is the day to be sincerely amused and genuinely astounded by our art. This is the day to love and to really thrash and to find actual beauty and rail against ugliness and to chew through the goddamned rind of the fruit and get drunk on its nectar. This is the day to be alive." And this is even more serious to me, so fast forward, I beg you. I sincerely believe that our films are our culture's mythology, and if the function of a culture's mythology is to teach that culture how to live, as Joseph Campbell puts forth, then what does it mean when that mythology keeps telling us to look through rose-colored glass, as if we're already dead or dying, and need to be assured that things used to be better? Or, Jesus, please fast forward. Or worse yet, what does it mean when our mythologies tell us that things were better when they were worse? Like in the 80s when we somehow swallowed lowest common denominator tripe like, "Joke on it, Dredd. To which he replies after he shoots the bad guy in the throat, "Choke on that." I reject all this nostalgia or kitsch or pastiche or ironic homage or whatever you want to call it, so fast forward. But if you don't fast forward, then I ask you, dear listener, to not go bravely into that good night, to rage against dying of the film. But there I go again, taking something that doesn't take itself seriously entirely too seriously. And so you should fast forward to this review, because the thing is, even in the most frivolous farces or most formulaic action adventures, I'm the kind of guy who yearns for just a little something inventive or clever or personal or otherwise redeeming. Jesus, if anyone's been paying attention to this show over the past few weeks, you'll know that I've sort of been grappling with myself because I tend to like too many films, and I mine even the ones I don't like for redeeming virtues. See All the Pretty Horses, etc. And then here, voila, I get what I asked for in Dredd, but I'm fucking sick over it. Because I swear it's difficult for me to find something redeeming, and I want to. Because I know that this thing is gathering up something of a cult following, and I hate shitting on things that other people like, and I just feel like a fucking goddamn heel. I just hope you fast forwarded.
First of all, I would like to personally thank Joe Christiana for encouraging our listeners to not listen to our show, which is really great. Thank you, Joe. I mean,
the idea was that they would fast forward and maybe
listen. 6 minutes later, maybe. I think one of the key things you said at the beginning for me with this film was low expectations, and that I did have going into this. And I think that the ongoing joke over the past week was, oh boy, I'm really dreading Dredd. And that's how I felt leading up to my screening of Dredd. And quite surprisingly, Joe, I feel a little bit different about it than you do. And I actually enjoyed the screening. And that was, with having a low expectation. But I don't know. I don't think that this is the, all of the typical dribble that you usually get in a sci-fi or action movie that's been coming out over the past 5-10 years. I kind of liked its feel. I think I love how it kind of like tightens itself up a little bit inside that building where the whole film basically takes place. I really dug the score in a lot of ways. It reminded me of watching a Walter Hill movie or a John Carpenter movie as far as the soundtrack or as far as the score is concerned. And you even said also at the beginning of your review that it might be, kind of having fun with itself even. And with all that in mind and more, I actually kind of would endorse this movie. I would tell people to watch this movie.
Cool. I wish you reviewed it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I hear you. I thought this was going to be a horrendous 90 minutes of my life, and
it was well done for sure, man. For sure.
Well, yeah, listen, it's not it's not knocking down any walls and discovering new grounds by any sense of that meaning, but I don't think it's actually as bad as, and this goes back to what Billy said one time, when
you're backing yourself right into it, Tom.
Yeah, isn't it sad when we go to the theater and say, "Oh, that wasn't as bad"?
Yeah, like a shot to the nuts.
But I listen. I don't want to fall into that category of person, Billy, not at all. But I will say I did have low expectations, and I kind of enjoyed watching this for 90 minutes. I don't think it was that awful. Billy, let's hear your take.
I don't have too much to say about it. I mean, I actually watched it several weeks ago, not knowing that it was going to be on the podcast.
Okay, so let's start with this. You were interested in watching this film outside of having to watch it for the show.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a research thing because I spend some time on the side writing comic books and stuff, and I did want to see, I kind of try to keep tabs on what people's expectations are for that kind of stuff. So I did watch it, and I think I joked with you that it was Die Hard with helmets.
So yeah, but I like Die Hard, Billy. God forgive me for liking John McNaughton's Die Hard movie. I think Die Hard is a fun movie. I really do. It's got a lot of charm. It's listen. There's nothing wrong with making a good action movie. I think Michael Mann does it all the time. I think he makes really good action movies. I think there's a place in the world for not too intellectualized action films, Bill.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's going to kind of go into RoboCop a little bit, but the only thing that I can see to do with a story like Dredd, and I have not read the comic books, but I've heard that they're very satirical about the police state mentality and all that. But this movie doesn't really, I don't feel like it does anything with that. RoboCop does,
RoboCop is great.
Clearly like a comedy. It's basically a comedy about the police state,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't sense any of that intelligence in Dredd, which leaves me with basically a music video. It's like a 90-minute music video, and it's beautiful.
It's all style.
It's well produced and everything, but it's that even if you're going to go so far as to produce something like that, you're just taking the oldest plot, the man in a building plot that Die Hard popularized, and it's 25 years, almost 30 years old, and you're not doing anything with it. So yeah, it didn't really do anything for me, Bill. Although I do like that actress. I think the actress who plays
that's
Lena Headey, I think is her name.
Well, yeah, she plays the villain. Lena Headey. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's really
I think
good.
she's a good actress. I like her, but she's about the most interesting kind of personality in the movie.
You weren't at all enthusiastic about the performance that the guy who played Judge Lex. You weren't enthusiastic about that at all.
I don't know who that is, actually.
Judge Lex. He was the guy that came in at the end of the movie that tried to take down Dredd. He was one of the judges.
I can't tell who any of those actors are behind the.
Oh, I don't know who that guy is. I think that I'm being sarcastic.
Okay, I can't tell with you, Tom. You're very subtle. You're
Stop answering the question.
It's very fine-grained sort of sarcasm.
Well, hey guys, listen. Max is off. Dave Pace is back with us this week. Dave assigned this week's film Dredd, and he also came up with our classic review theme for next week, which is Paul Verhoeven. And we will be talking about RoboCop, and we're going to talk about Total Recall, and I'm sure we'll be discussing Verhoeven's other films as well. But Dave is back. Dave, first of all, it's great to have you back. And secondly, tell me about your feelings about this film Dredd.
Oh, I hate it. It's terrible.
That's it.
Yeah, it was god-awful. It was a god-awful piece of filming.
Wow. Was this the first time you had seen it? I mean...
No, I've seen it a couple times before. I hate myself, so I watch it several times.
That's very interesting.
When you've been bad, you punish yourself with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's all... I think this is all what this is about. I have this, self-loathing that drives me to bad films and watching them. So, yeah.
Interesting. Are you muting yourself on and off as you say something, Dave?
I have an air compressor going off in the background here because
I like it. But the air compressor definitely, Joe, don't you say that it adds to the show a little bit?
Well, it is a sci-fi theme, so it kind of gives you, it's almost like being in the building that Judge Dredd had to get at.
It probably sounds better than me right now, so, yeah.
So Dave,
there we go.
I mean, you really did not enjoy this movie at all. I mean, No,
I loved this movie.
Okay.
I actually loved this fucking movie. And, I mean, there's a million reasons why. None of them were good. None of the reasons are... I mean, I couldn't sit there and tell you that this is a brilliant artistic vision or anything like that.
Right.
It's not. I had a really fun time watching it. I thought it was just a tightly constructed little story. Nobody's saving the world. The universe is not at stake. It all just sort of played out like a day in the lives of these fascist maniacs riding around on motorcycles murdering people. And I don't know. There's a part of that appeals to me, and that's probably because I'm a sick, vile human being. There's something wrong with me. There's something deeply, deeply wrong with me.
Well, it's so funny, Dave, because like these types of films appeal to me too. These over stylized pieces of cinema that have ultra violence and kind of I would say the same kind of plot and almost the same kind of story, but I kind of get drawn to them. And Billy, took a shot at Die Hard, and I'm surprised, Billy, you don't like Die Hard. I really am, because I think it's a
Die Hard's my favorite Christmas movie.
But I'm totally into, like I said, those over stylized violent films. They're kind of like a little pet. I love Escape from New York and Walter Hill's The Warriors, and I get really excited about those types of films. And in watching Dredd, I see that the director, what's his name, Pete Travis, I could tell that he's also a fan of these movies too. And I kind of dug watching Dredd. Forgive me.
I read when I was a kid. I read the 2000 AD comic books that Judge Dredd came from the UK, and I would find them at this used bookstore, because I don't think our comic shop regularly carried them, because they were imported from England. So I would sort of find them as I could, and I read all these crazy Judge Dredd comics when I was a kid, and it was insane. They were these insane satires of Thatcher's Britain, and even though I was just a kid, I got the very keen sense that the people writing these comic books were fucking with me, and were fucking with everyone reading them, and that you weren't really supposed to like Judge Dredd, and that he was a crazy fascist asshole, and that this is where things could be, that this is what could happen to us, this is how things could be if we let fuckheads like Thatcher and scum like that take over our countries. And does this movie do anything with any of that stuff? No, it doesn't. And that's probably its principle.
Just its setting. I mean, its setting, where these characters are at and what led up to that point, that's in there. But the movie isn't covering that.
Yeah, you never really get a sense of the. That's my two biggest problems with it, are that and the CGI blood, which I objected to very strongly.
And I really dug I did dig the slow mo drug scenes. I found them. I mean, listen, I found them to be somewhat hypnotic. I really would. When I'm watching the movie and those drug scenes would come on, I would just be. I mean, literally, into watching, everything unfold on screen. It was really interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff was really beautifully shot. Incidentally, that's why they had to use CG blood a lot of the times. It's that they found that the actual practical blood effects didn't work very well. It wasn't easily repeatable. So when they were doing the slow-mo look, they found it was just too difficult to get those shots correct, so they had to do it CG. So you get the stupid, shitty CG blood, which I hate.
Now, Dave, I would almost bet my life that you've seen the original Judge Dredd.
Yeah, I have many, many times.
And now this
because I hate myself.
Right, because you hate yourself. I've never seen the Stallone version of Judge Dredd, but I mean, I can only imagine how god awful it is. And doing research on this movie and reading what people were saying about the original Stallone Judge Dredd was one of the biggest no-no is having Dredd without his helmet on.
Right.
And Stallone basically went 80% of the movie without the helmet on.
Yeah, majority. I don't think you ever see him with it on. I think there's maybe like one scene with the helmet
It's
on.
just so funny, you know, how a man like that could just take a concept and completely just twist it around and ruin it.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know how core to people the helmet thing is. I mean, I guess it's pretty important to some people, but you know.
Yeah,
it was neat.
It is important to some people. I mean, honestly, I read a thread where it was like the most important thing to like 100 people. Like, you know, I mean, it was very important to them.
Those people hate themselves a lot more than I do.
Dave, I love the fact that you bring science fiction to the show. We should definitely be talking more sci-fi. You know, it's something that we don't really get into often. We have done it before.
Refuse to talk about good sci-fi. Though, so.
Yeah, but we have. I mean, we've done it before minimally. You know, I think Billy brought the Alien movies and Prometheus to the table one time. But what I do want to do is let's get Billy and Joe back into the mix here because they weren't enthusiastic about this film. But what I would love to ask, and either one can answer the question. You know what, Billy, if you do have an answer, why don't you go first? In the past 5 or 10 years, I mean, are there 1, 2, maybe 3 good, you know, science fiction films that you've enjoyed? I don't know.
That is a good question. Boy, I know there are. I know that I've enjoyed some. I can't think of any offhand.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, part of the problem for me is I feel like I do like science fiction in comics and in books, and I feel like whenever they make science fiction movies, it should always be in quotation marks because it's really just action films buried inside of science fiction trappings, you know? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I can't think of any offhand, but I know they've been there. I mean, I enjoyed Her. I didn't think it was a genius film like everyone is raving about, but I thought it was pretty good. But yeah, I usually tend to like the ones that fuck with your head a little bit, you know?
Right.
Like it's more, yeah, you know, and I'll, you know, get into that with Total Recall, but.
What the hell? What was I going to say? Moon with Sam Rockwell. Did you see that?
I liked it. I was not. I know Joe raves about it. I was not as
Joe
enthusiastic. Yeah. I was not as enthusiastic about it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people. Yeah, science fiction movie, Gravity. I raved. I was weeping. I was shedding tears of joy watching this silly 3D roller coaster ride. I mean, I really enjoyed that movie.
Well, I love science fiction movies, Billy. I mean, are you similar to me in the sense that like you'll put Elysium and Oblivion on your Netflix queue when they come out and try?
Elysium was another one that, you know, it disappoints me because the first parts of Elysium are so good. It's everything that's
really good.
Yeah,
really
I
good.
mean, I loved that portrayal of, you know, just a tenement hell of the future. I thought that was just the whole thing, the dehumanization, everything was just brilliant. But it just, those movies go on autopilot. You know?
And
about halfway through, it's just nonstop like gunfire, you know. And I just can't. I've seen that too many times.
And it's so funny about Elysium because he, the director, what was that first movie he did? The one that Peter
District
Jackson?
9.
District 9. And I felt the same way about District 9, that it was like the first half is just intense. I'm drawn in, and then it's paint by numbers in the second half of the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I like what Charlie Kaufman does. I think that he's like pretty borderline science fiction. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind was definitely science fiction. Children of Men, I mean, that's more like dystopian type stuff. But
right.
Yeah, it's you know, it's just like, it's kind of what Hollywood is doing in general, is just feeding every concept that you can come up with. They'll feed it into their sausage making factory, and it all comes out looking exactly the same at the other end, you know?
Yeah, it's true, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't tell you can't tell the difference between, Elysium and Oblivion.
That's,
you just look at them, and they all, like, everything looks the same in these movies too.
Yeah, I mean, all these, you know, all the people that are making these films, they're all out of film schools that train you like you're, you know, like you're stamping out bricks or something.
It's
you know?
amazing too, because they're given this great opportunity to create a universe. I mean, this is what's great about and we'll be talking about Paul Verhoeven, next week. But this is why guys like Paul Verhoeven are great at what they do, or George Lucas, or Ridley Scott back in the 70s and the 80s. They're given this opportunity to create these universes that are just so different. And you can do anything you want, and they take the time to be artists, to be real.
Yeah.
Look at fucking Blade Runner. Look at Star Wars, for crying out loud.
You know what is crazy about Blade Runner is that it failed, and this is I think why Hollywood is gun shy about trying things with science fiction. Is it costs money to create those worlds a lot, and they're just not going to take any chances with it. Blade Runner did fail because it was not what people were expecting, And you go back and look at it now, and it's a minor masterpiece.
Yeah, right.
But the whole world that it creates is about mood, and it's about like a state of mind,
Mm-hmm.
And no one's going to spend, $150 million on a state of mind, They want to make the dollars back, so.
Which is exactly right, and you hit on a very important point, Billy, and that's why science fiction movies are shitty and cheap and look like bullshit. And I love them anyway, because I always have watched them with a mind towards that one thing about them, that one idea, or what they're aiming at, or what they're trying to do, whether they're failing or not, and mostly they're failing. They don't have the money to do everything they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
They're not able to match their own ambitions. And there's something I admire about the ones that get up and give it a go anyway.
What is the do you see any idea in Dredd that they're trying to get at that is buried under the surface?
No.
So
Not
that
really.
one is an
mean,
exception.
No.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I had no fucking expectations whatsoever from Dredd. I'd seen the fucking Stallone one, and I was like, oh god, this is, I mean, if this can manage to be marginally better than that, well, that'll be something. And the fact that it managed to be considerably better than that was very surprising to me. And I think maybe it benefits from its own lack of ambition in that way, right? In that it's like, we're gonna do something just real fucking simple here, okay? We're not gonna freak anybody out. We're not gonna rock anything too hard. We're just going to make this straight up. We're just gonna treat this like a straight up premise, and just like, okay, here's a day in the life of a couple of crazy fascist cops, and one of them psychic.
Yeah, here's what drives me crazy though, and Verhoeven does this, and Dredd doesn't. You can take that and then push it without raising the budget or anything. You can push that one notch further. You can turn it up to 11, and there's still, like, when I see the concept of Dredd, I see relevance to today. The militarization of the American police force scares the fuck out of me. And the prison system of America scares the fuck out of me right now. If you're going to make a movie, even if I feel like Dredd was fairly low budget for a movie.
50 million.
Yeah, that's
compared to Elysium, which is 150 million.
That's pretty low budget for one of these movies, which I figured because they kept it all in one
resources
location.
to work with, yeah.
Yeah, so if you've got that to work with, I think you can fuck with the story in minor ways that make it relevant to people going to see that movie today. And when they don't even try to do that even a little bit, I didn't sense that they were trying to do that at all. I just sensed that they were trying to make a, kiss kiss bang bang kind of wham bam thank you man type movie.
I love your cliches, Billy.
Yeah. When I discuss it, they just come pouring out of me. That's what, Dave. That's what kind of drives me crazy when I see a movie like that has material that's relevant for today, and they don't even try to do anything with it. Even a little bit. Doesn't that bug you at all?
Yeah, well, it's definitely disappointing. And it's very much like the comic book in that regard, right? I mean, the comic book was helmed by different writers, by different artists, and each sort of little story arc some were filled with satire and just overflowing with it, and to a ridiculous degree, and some there was none at all. It was just like we're going to do a straight up, this is straight up Judge Dredd story, and I think in this case they made the choice, for better or for worse, to say we're just going to do a straight up Judge Dredd story, and we're going to try and not turn on all the we're going to try and keep that all sort of in the background, right? So I mean, and it's there. I mean, it's there if you want to see it. It's just not really presented, right? It's just kind of there.
Yeah.
Which is disappointing.
In the comic book, is there a whole backstory to this Dredd character where you...
No.
Nothing.
No. Dredd is like a cipher, right?
He's a robot, basically.
Dredd is basically just walking fascist England. is what he is, right?
If you pull the helmet off, it's actually Thatcher under there.
Yeah, no, seriously. It's like the broiling, violent id of Daily Mail readers. And that's what it is. Like, Dredd is just this, like, total violent masturbation fantasy for angry white Britons. And he was meant to fuck with them, like, to be like, this guy's a fucking asshole. This guy's shit. And people who think like this guy are the people we are electing into government right now. And the people who are becoming members of parliament, and the people who are coming up in the world in Thatcher's Britain. And some people, I think, who read that comic book got that. Some people who read that comic book didn't, and totally got off on the whole, Yahoo, let's go kill some criminals thing.
Yeah.
And some writers, I think, who wrote the comic were really into fucking with people and satirizing the world that they were living in, and some just weren't. And some were just like, yeah, let's kill some shit. So it's a tricky thing, right? It's there, and sometimes they present it to you and sort of give you a good look at it, and sometimes they really don't. And in this film version, they don't. And I don't think that's the benefit of the film.
We're talking Dredd from 2012, directed by Pete Travis and starring Carl Urban. Joe, you want to jump in on this before we start wrapping it up soon?
I'm just glad that you guys talked about it in a better way than I did. So I feel really bad about reviewing a film like that. I know the past couple of episodes I've been talking about I always like too many films, and then here I go and I'm fucking beating myself up over it because I don't like it, and we
stopped the gasoline from being thrown onto the fire. Yeah. Without a doubt.
I will throw out two other. I did like Gravity a lot. If you were talking about sci-fi films,
yeah.
But Time Crimes is one of my favorites.
Oh my god! How incredible is that movie? That might be the best science fiction I've seen science fiction movie I've seen in the past 10 years.
Yeah, I really like The Moon too. I've been meaning to get back to that. But
I totally forgot about that too. Wow. Holy shit.
But I just watched with my son, which look, real science fiction fans are probably not going to like this, but I loved, and I know it's a few years old, but I loved the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I fucking loved it. It's fucking hilarious. It's hilarious, and that's the case of someone of like, and I know the book is decades old or whatever, but that's a dude who did something completely off the fucking wall with sci-fi.
I've never seen the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
You should read it, man. It's a great fucking book, Tom.
I think there's a copy of it around here somewhere. To be honest with you,
you'd love it, and it pairs well with Asimov's Foundation series because I was reading both of those at the same time.
Do you, Dave, Billy, you guys dig that film?
Hitchhiker's Guide?
Yeah.
I thought it was funny. I was not blown away by it. But I had also seen, this is how nerdy I am, I saw the BBC production of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
What is
before.
That's right. They did one. It was in like the 60s. Was it it must have been the 70s because I think you wrote that in the 60s.
I think it was the 80s, but
okay.
European TV production values are about 10 years behind. Yeah, you can't really tell. I do want to say that over the last 10 years, my favorite science fiction film. It is a toss up between J.J. Abrams' Star Trek and The Hunger Games.
I will say,
Fuck
I don't know.
Fuck you.
I don't know if Hunger Games is a sci-fi.
Yeah, but Joe, you enjoy the Hunger Games.
I did.
You
and
go
you know,
to
I
like
did.
the midnight
Fuck
premiere.
you.
Joe goes on Thursday night at midnight.
Fuck you.
I wouldn't have liked it so much, but I did. I went to the premiere because my daughter's.
you.
Wait, hold on. My daughter is a 12-year-old, 11-year-old girl, so we went.
You're contractually obligated to take her.
I'm almost obligated, but it was so fun, man. Watching, it was like a whole auditorium full of girls. It was just like an experience I never ever would have had. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting, and I don't know that's a sci-fi movie, but it was pretty fun, man. I love it.
Boy, what's next, Joe? What is next? I don't even know where to go after that.
Games theme park. No shit. Fucking Disney. They're gonna make a Hunger Games theme park. So this is a theme park based around a game where children run around killing each other.
Yeah,
That sounds great.
we all have our guilty pleasures.
That can't possibly be true.
Yeah, fucking Hunger Games. Really, like that's. Come on.
Now, is that as bad as the Twilight?
Well, look. I'm gonna say that wasn't blown away by it. It didn't change my world. It wasn't. But for one reason or another, I enjoyed sitting there in that auditorium.
Dave, you do know I'm being sarcastic, right?
About what?
About Star Trek and Hunger Games.
I know you're bad. I know.
Oh, thank God. All right. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Really?
I'm not
Billy,
gauging things properly right now. Reality is a little distorted to me, so.
Oh my God.